The opium trade is one of the most notorious periods in history, and its impact on Chinese society is undeniable. It was a time when foreign powers such as Great Britain, the US, and France used opium as a tool to exploit China and its people. During this period, the Western powers were able to establish economic and political control over China, which had a detrimental effect on the country and its people. The opium trade began in the 18th century when the British East India Company started exporting opium from India to China. The opium was grown in India and then shipped to China, where it was traded for tea, silk, and precious metals. However, over time, the opium trade became the primary source of income for the British. The reason for this was simple: opium was addictive, and once people started using it, they couldn't stop. The increasing demand for opium in China led to a surge in its production, with the British flooding the Chinese market with the drug. Chinese society during this time was very different from Western society. One of the most significant differences was the use of drugs. While drugs such as alcohol and tobacco were widely used in the West, the use of drugs in China was frowned upon. Confucian philosophy placed a premium on moderation and self-control, and the use of drugs was seen as a sign of weakness. However, this did not stop the British from forcing opium on China. The impact of the opium trade on Chinese society was catastrophic. The drug was highly addictive and led to significant health problems for its users. It also had a severe impact on the Chinese economy, as the Chinese had to buy the opium with their precious metals. The Chinese economy was thrown into disarray, and the country went from being one of the wealthiest in the world to one of the poorest. The opium trade was not just an economic issue, it was also a cultural issue. The Chinese saw the opium trade as a symbol of cultural imperialism from the Western powers. The fact that the British were forcing opium on the Chinese was seen as an affront to Chinese culture and a sign of disrespect. The opium trade also had a significant impact on Chinese politics. China was a closed society, and the government had very little contact with the outside world. However, the opium trade gave foreign powers an unprecedented level of access to the Chinese government. The British were able to establish a system of legal and illegal opium smuggling, which allowed them to establish a dominant economic and political presence in China. The opium trade also had a significant impact on China's relationship with the West. The Chinese government saw the opium trade as a sign of disrespect and a threat to their sovereignty. However, the British government saw the opium trade as a way to maintain their economic and political dominance in the region. This led to a significant diplomatic crisis between China and the Western powers, which ultimately led to the Opium Wars. The Opium Wars were a series of conflicts between China and Great Britain, which occurred between 1839 and 1860. The wars were fought over Britain's desire to continue the opium trade and China's desire to stop it. The wars ended with British victory, and China was forced to sign a series of unequal treaties, which gave foreign powers significant economic and political control over China. The opium trade was now fully legal and the Chinese government was powerless to stop it. The opium trade had a profound impact on Chinese society and culture. It led to widespread addiction, economic collapse, and political instability. It also paved the way for foreign powers to gain dominance over China, which would have a lasting impact on the country and its people. In conclusion, the opium trade was a dark period in history, and its impact on Chinese society is still felt today. The trade was a sign of cultural imperialism and a threat to China's sovereignty. It led to widespread addiction, economic collapse, and political instability. The opium trade paved the way for foreign powers to gain dominance over China, which has had a lasting impact on the country and its people.